Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, Derek, and I know this is going to make a lot of you happy. That is because every single time I talk about N64 decomps, recomps, or PC ports, everyone always mentions they want the AKI wrestling games. And even though this is not a decomp, it is a ROM hack. WCW vs. nWo Revenge Starrcade Edition is out now and is absolutely a massive upgrade over the original game. We're talking over 200 new moves and taunts, new textures, new costumes, basically taking the base game and blowing it up to a brand new game that you absolutely have to experience if you even so much as remotely like these games. And I will say, as far as wrestling games are concerned, Aki's games on the N64 are still the gold standard in my opinion when it comes to just fun wrestling. And because this is the generation when I actually watched WCW and WWF, now WWE, I have so much nostalgia for these characters. And admittedly, I stopped watching wrestling probably like in sophomore or junior year of high school and I never actually went back. But this is basically a time capsule for the stuff I watched on TV and a ton of us did as well. And I will say this ROM hack is absolutely massive and should be considered the de facto way to play this game moving forward. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. And you can just imagine the notification bell looking like a ring bell because of course we are doing some wrestling here. R-A-S-S-L-I-N, not wrestling. And honestly, I just love this era of all of wrestling. I grew up with it, it was always fun, and I had every single game on N64 that would come out. My best friend and I would play this thing basically all summer long during school breaks and have a blast, and honestly, it holds up every bit as good today as it did back in the day. Now for the base game, all of the moves and inputs and everything else are going to be fast and fluid just like they were in the original game in and of itself, but here in the Starrcade Edition, you're going to have a ton of new wrestlers, a bunch of rosters brought back, new costumes and everything else. Some of them are going to be apparent, some of them you're going to have to find, but honestly this is just an absolutely massive ROM hack and really does feel like a brand new game. And because it is in the AKI wrestling engine, of course, you're getting all of the quality that you would get on the base ROM, and that in and of itself is an absolute win. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me favorite wrestlers from back in the day. For me, absolutely Jim Duggan and Ric Flair. Always loved both of them, and even though I don't see him in the game, Steven Regal always had a very funny charm. And I remember the entire nWo era and everything else when WWE and WCW were basically competing on TV, and it was always fun to be able to have more wrestling in any given week. And honestly, I haven't played a wrestling video game since basically the N64 era, so if there is a good modern one, leave me a comment down below and you tell me what I should play, because I kind of want to play something that was made recently if it is worth playing. Because while I might not watch wrestling anymore, I definitely love a good fighting game, and honestly, getting some matches in, I just love the overall aspect of trying to figure out what your opponent's doing and going from there. And I will say, in Starrcade Edition here, having a bigger roster, having new outfits and new textures, really just makes it that quintessential experience. And it really goes to show how well these games have held up, because every single time I talk about one on the channel, I remember how much I love it, and I basically play for 2 hours and get way too much capture for the footage I actually need for a video. And that really is a testament to how much fun you can still have with these things. Now, of course, I am playing against the CPU because I am home working alone, but honestly, this is the type of game that absolutely comes alive if you have some friends in the room with you. And next game night, if you got a bunch of friends sitting around that all watch the same matches back in the day and the same pay-per-view, this is absolutely going to be a 10 out of 10 to load up and play together. And I absolutely love that people still basically make ROM hacks for these games. That is how beloved they are. People spend hundreds upon hundreds of hours to give you a bigger roster, a new moveset, and a bunch of new taunt animations as well, and those are definitely a lot of fun. It really just goes to show fans out there will continue to refine these games and make them even better, and I absolutely love to see stuff like that and talk about it on the channel, because I love the N64 era wrestling games, and just having more of a good thing is always going to be a better thing. Let's move into the first soundtrack sample here. We're going to do 45 seconds, but come back. I'll talk more about the additions to the game and why you definitely have to check this one out if you haven't yet. Hacksaw Jim Duggan wins another one, and that's always going to be a happy moment in time for me. I really don't even know what it was about Hacksaw Jim Duggan back in the day that was always hilarious with his 2x4. But of course we have Rowdy Roddy Piper. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. But again, another one of my favorite wrestlers back in the day because he could just cut an absolutely amazing promo. And that really was the fun part about this generation of wrestling, at least for me. The promos, all the ridiculous over-the-top stuff, still having those huge wrestlers from the late 80s to early 90s wrestling like Macho Man Randy Savage, and the rest of everything else. Now, as far as the improvements here, I'm just going to go down the list and kind of do a couple of the keynote ones. Obviously, you're going to get new characters, and rosters are going to be expanded. There's over 200 ported and custom move and taunt animations throughout the game. Every character is going to now have 4 actual costumes, and custom sound effects and clips for basically every character in the game, including announcer clips. That definitely is, in and of itself, a metric crap ton of improvement. And there's definitely some other stuff going to be hiding in this ROM hack that you'll find as you kind of move along. And I can't even imagine how long it would take to do something like that, but I absolutely love that people continue to do so. As you know, I'm always going to talk about some new ROM hacks on the channel, and I know as far as N64 recomps and N64 PC ports are concerned, these are very high up on everyone's list, mine included, because I would love to live in a future where you have a PC port of all the great AKI wrestling games, so you can get 16:9 higher frame rates and a ton of modability and maybe even some rollback netcode, so you can play stuff like this with your friends online. Because as I always like to say, in my reality, I have only one friend that actually even plays video games, and he's not going anywhere near a wrestling game or a fighting game, so even if I invite him over for a game night, we're not playing any sort of fighting games whatsoever. So really, for me, stuff like this is online, or I have to play against the CPU. Would you leave me a comment down below and you tell me favorite AKI wrestling game on N64? I would be curious, and if it did get a PC port, what would you love to see brought back in? I will say the one thing that could definitely still use some work, and that has nothing to do with the ROM hack, just the game, is the CPU can be a little bit brain dead, especially in the Battle Royale matches. You have 2 characters basically wandering around doing absolutely nothing. And seeing Mr. T on the 1-800 Collect billboard there, absolute throwback to the 90s when Mr. T was a spokesperson for long distance. And that's one of those things I'm sure you all remember, all the different 1-800 Collect kind of channels and commercials where you'd basically just see people trying to convince you to call on a payphone in a certain way. It's a reality we don't live in anymore, but it's a perfect throwback in a game like this, because in the 90s and long before cell phones became ubiquitous, that's the world we lived in, and honestly in some ways, maybe it was even an easier world. But we have stuff like this, throwbacks to the N64 era of some of the best wrestling games of all time, and it's the best you can basically get to getting a time machine and going back to the 90s and having some fun. But here's the second soundtrack sample, go ahead and listen, and I'll be right back. I mean, between the music to the combat and everything else, the original game, in my opinion, is a straight up 10 out of 10 perfect. There really isn't anything I would point to say that I would want to change. And now with the Starrcade Edition, it's an even better version of perfect. So I guess we're just going to have to call it perfecter, even if that is not a word. And honestly, the entire ROM hack team here did an absolutely outstanding job. And I would go down the credits list, but honestly, it's like 30 names. So I will leave a link in the description below where you can grab this patch. And it even comes with its own patcher, a website, so you can basically just put in your totally legally owned copy of the game, go ahead and patch it and play it to your heart's content. And just so you know, I use Rosalie's Mupen GUI for this just for ease of use, but I have heard that it works on Mr. FPGA as well as real N64 hardware if you have a flash cart. So the only wrong way to play this one is not to play it in the first place. if you're even tangentially a fan of these games, you are getting straight up one of the best N64 wrestling games ever made, and then you're getting one of the best ROM hacks on top of that best game, and that just is straight up a win for absolutely everyone. And I remember the Diamond Dallas Page era as well, with his absolutely iconic taunt, stuff that we would do in the playground when we were kids, because of course you emulated everything you saw on TV outside of actually jumping through a bunch of tables like Sabu would in ECW. But short of that, we're done. I'm going to win the match in the cheapest way possible, like I used to do back in the day. But you have to trust me on this one. This is one of the best N64 ROM hacks ever made for one of the best N64 games ever made. And if you don't play it, you're missing out this weekend. But short of that, I'll see you next time. Piper wins. Bye-bye.